Now, I'm sure you have seen that Los Angeles is under fire, and I wanted to see if, as above, so below, I could find some correlations to the fires that are happening and any fires that are happening up in the heavens. And honestly, what I found is very, very shocking. The first thing I did was look at the time that the fires are recorded to start, which were January 7 at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Palisades. So I actually generated a chart of events for this day, and this is what we have. The loudest thing that we need to consider is how the North Node is at a critical 0 degree of Aries. Now, this is so important for several reasons, which I'll break them down, but the 0 degree of Aries is considered the conception point where the spirit enters life. And so we have been looking and tracking this for a really long time because it does mark the start or the beginning of something new. The point of 0 degrees of Aries is considered a gateway and a literal portal into bringing something new on Earth. And this has been honored in cultures over time. They are honored in a positive light as far as new creation, and we could see this in the underlying pagan traditions. So the 0 degree Aries actually talks about the collective congregation or unification, where a group of people have to come together to survive, as 0 degrees of Aries is the inception point. And so we don't know what is forward, so we have to put all of our tools together so we can make it through this period. And I do think we're obviously seeing that. Also, the way that I see this is 0 degree Aries is a personal point. It's all about the I am. But with it drawing in the collective, it's so much about needing all the pieces of the puzzle. We need everybody to come together and lead with what their gifts are, what they know, and help humanity pull through this period. And I do think it'll have global effects because we may find some faults in what is happening with how it could have been prevented. And I'm going to say that because of where Mars is. Now, to add to this 0 degree of Aries North Node, we have the moon that was in Aries as well. And this is going to be the last time the moon in Aries is going to be with the North Node in Aries, which makes it a big boom, a goodbye, a big farewell. And this is what you were supposed to learn, or this is a result of XYZ from the last 2.5 years. Now, I talked about this in my previous video of what the Aries North Node has meant, but it is incredibly significant that the moon would be in Aries, emphasizing the dynamic of fire in the heavens. And it was also conjunct or passing through Chiron as well, which talks about some kind of victimization around the fire. Now, to track down what was victimized with Chiron and Aries and the moon essentially passing through the North Node in Chiron over the last day, what was victimized? So for that, we turn to actual Mars. What is Mars doing in the heavens? And he happens to be at a very critical degree of 29 degrees of Cancer. It had just retrograded the day before. It is in Mars right now is in retrograde motion, so he's not going forward. And he is going back into this fight that he's been having with Pluto over the last couple of months, where Pluto and Mars have been opposing one another. We saw this kind of take form on New Year's with the little explosions that were happening, and we're starting to see more of this fight come forward. Now, the first time that they came together, nothing big happened, but this is the second time that it has come forward, and now we're starting to see more physicality around this Mars-Pluto opposition. Now, 29 degrees of Cancer stands out to me because, as I mentioned, it is in a critical degree. 0 and 29 are critical degrees in astrology. You could say that 0 is the start, 29 is the end. And with 29 degrees of Cancer, we're looking at a domesticated expression. What is safe and familiar to us is at 29 degrees of Cancer. And you could say these are homes, our familiar spaces, our schools, our churches, where we nest and rest ourselves to nurture the growth of a family unit. I think that's the most shocking part for me in all of this, is how this very much is being seen in the homes that are being affected and everybody else that is involved in this really, really sad fire. Now, as I mentioned, the 29 degrees in astrology is considered the crisis point or a critical time in a person's experience, or in this case, in the world events. And so this does indicate the lack of water. And I keep looking at that in the chart, how water is not available to us, which is alarming because it's drying us out. This is a result of being dried out. Of course, this is going to reflect emotional stress and the need to protect the home environment, which for the people who are affected, we're seeing this. Another thing that I'm seeing is how the cardinal energies are fighting with each other. We have the sun in Capricorn that was squaring the moon in Aries, and then now we had Mars and Cancer get involved. So we have all these cardinal energies that are wanting to take domain. They want to be listened to. They want the leadership position, but it's not being quite given to these energies, or there's a literal fight over it. And I think we're going to see that reflected in people pushing blame on each other. I don't know who these are. Maybe it's political leaders or something of this nature, but it's everybody pointing the finger at each other instead of taking responsibility and accountability. What I'm seeing in the heavens is a karmic turning point for the city of Los Angeles, which is very interesting with the esoteric underlying definitions that Los Angeles is associated with. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of people being affected and it's still going. I wonder if this is going to go on for the next 2 days, as that's how long the North Node is going to still be at 0 degrees of Aries. January 11th is when the North Node goes into Pisces, which may give us access to water. Very interesting. Also, the Sabian symbol. I didn't even get into those, but I'm going to pop them up here really quickly. The Sabian symbol of 1 degree Aries is a woman rises out of water. A seal rises and embraces her. And that was the most shocking to me, because it is showing us that the answer to this is in the water, and the conception point of humanity, everything is born from water. So even though there's a destruction happening with the fire element, we have water that's going to come in to birth something new. And if we look at 29 degrees of Cancer, we're seeing a muse weighing twins. So this is weighing out alternatives. This is almost like a form of judgment coming up for certain individuals or a collective, where balancing is very important, where people's choices, I guess you could say, are irrelevant and they are having to all be streamlined into one direction. Incredibly fascinating. But let me know what you guys think. These are some of the observations that I see. Do you guys connect any dots? Also, wishing everybody safety, security, and love. I happen to live in LA. I'm like 15 miles away from the Getty Museum. So we are seeing it in a very mild form, but it's still very, very, very sad for all the kids. I'm thinking of all the kids and how they're displaced and their schools and their homes. Like, that is the most devastating part, is the little ones.